Welcome to the third video. What we're going to be looking at now is bass lines and melodies for your own track and how to make those. So I've got my own little project open up here. I'm going to do two different ones just to give you two different examples. Obviously I have no idea what kind of music you're making while I'm recording this, but hopefully you can apply that to your own genre and to your own tracks. So you can see up here I've got a hip hop one and then I've got a dance or housey beat as well. I'm just going to play those two. So that's the hip hop beat and now this little housey beat. So two different genres, and what I'm going to do is make basses and melodies for both of these ones. So hopefully you have your beat from the first week ready to go, ready to move on to this stage. What I'm going to do is I'll start with the hip hop one and then we'll move to the dance one. So when it comes to hip hop, I'm probably going to use a sine wave for the bass, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to give you an introduction as to where these sounds actually live in Ableton. So if we come over here and we go to sounds, you'll see it's all categorized into different instruments and to different type of sounds. So if we want a bass, we can just open this up and you'll see now all these Ableton presets are living in here. And because I've got all the packs, I have hundreds of sounds to use and work with. So you can sit here, you can kind of pick one. Let's say pick this first one here. And you can just scroll through and find sounds that you like and ones that will suit your track or your genre. So you can see next to the names here, we've got ADG and .adv. Basically, .adg is a device group, so it's a preset group which can include effects, like reverbs, filters, already pre-made for you. And what they've done is if I just double click this one here, let's say acoustic bass, I'm just playing this on my keyboard. What they do is they map all these mod wheels for you, so you can just tweak these to try and get the sound that you like. So you don't have to worry about knowing about effects and all that sort of stuff. You can kind of just come in here, just play around with these mod wheels to get a sound that you like. We will be covering all this stuff obviously eventually, but for now, the easiest and fastest way to get some sounds out is to just pick one of these presets here and just tweak it until you get something that sounds like what you want. So yeah, that's essentially where all these live. For hip hop, there is a really good one in Ableton and it's literally called hip hop sub bass. So I'm going to use that. I'm just going to drag it onto this new MIDI track here next to my beat. And now I have this hip hop sub bass. You can see as well this has already been customized with wheels. So I can change aspects of the sound. I can distort it. And all I have to do is just turn these knobs and I can get what I want pretty quickly. Cool, so I think I'm going to use something like this. So I'm going to use the hip hop sub bass. So I'm just going to listen to my beat. Make sure it's on. That's probably a little too much. I'm just going to turn that down a bit. Mess around with this. So again, I make a MIDI clip, double click in here, and then I can change the length of the bars to something that I want. One thing I'm going to introduce to you guys now is actually another way to get notes in there. So instead of double clicking to get a MIDI clip, if you have a MIDI keyboard or you're comfortable with using your computer keyboard, you can actually just record in the pattern that you want. So how we do that, all we have to do is hit this little circle here, this record button, That'll give us a countdown, and once it finishes, we'll start recording. So to change the countdown, come to your metronome here. There's a little arrow, little down arrow. Click that, and you'll see counting. So I have mine set to 1 bar. Some people like a bit more time to prepare, so they set to 2 bars or 4 bars, whatever suits you. I like mine set to 1 bar. And you can also change the sound in here and the rhythm as well. So that's how you get that. So you're here now. Once I hit record, it's going to give me a 1 bar countdown, and then I'll be able to record exactly what I want in there using my keyboard or MIDI keyboard. So I'm just going to find something I like. Cool. So I've got something I like. I'm going to hit record, and I'm going to prepare to play it. Cool. So I like that. Now you're here. If I play this, exactly how I recorded it, I didn't record it perfectly, as you'll see. So if I play it, you'll see how some notes are off. Because I played it manually and organically, it's not going to be perfect because I'm not a robot. So I'm not going to hit those beats exactly every single time. But you don't have to panic. You don't have to re-record it if you don't want to. What you can do is just set this to a appropriate grid. So let's say quarter notes. Actually, with this we probably want eighth notes. So I can highlight everything. I can right click, and up here you'll see quantize. First I'm going to go into the settings, quantize settings. So what quantize does is it takes the notes that you've recorded in, and it basically fixes it to the grid. So it kind of snaps it into place to where it's supposed to be, or where you want it to be. So I'm going to adjust the start and end to the current grid. And here you can see a little amount option. So what this does is, if you don't want it to be perfectly on the grid and you want some of that organicness and that human feel, you can just set it to like something lower, say 50%, and it will only snap it 50% of the way to where the grid is. So you don't have to have that perfectly robotic sound. For this bass line, I'm actually going to snap it because I want it to be on the beat. I'm just going to hit OK. Now you'll see it just snapped all of my notes so that now they're perfectly on the grid. So you can see some notes here I didn't hold long enough, so I can just come in here manually. You don't have to use quantize either, you can come in manually and fix it yourself. So if I just do that, and just chop this end one here. There we go, so I got my bass line in now. So that's another way to add MIDI notes, is to just record them in. So it all depends on what you like. Some people like to draw them in manually, and some people like to record them. Depends on how you like to make your music. Cool, so I've got the bass. Now I'm just going to add a little lead. So I'm going to come back to my sounds over here. I'm going to close this because we don't want a bass. So if you look down here, now with a hip hop track, a lead can be anything. It can be a real instrument, it can be a guitar, violin. I mean, with any track really, it can be anything. So I might use a synth lead for this one. So I'm just going to open this. Feel free to use, play around. You can use a piano if you want. You can use strings for a lead. It's all in here. So I'm going to use a synth lead. And I'm just going to find a sound that I like. So after scrolling for half an hour, I found something I liked. That's one thing I should mention, is you can get caught up looking for sounds for a very long time. That's why I do recommend you set something up like this, a little collection, put in your favorite sounds, and then you can just drag those in. And that way you don't have to look for hours to find sounds that you know you like, or ones that suit you. unless you're at the point of where you can craft your own sound from scratch every single time. But I found this one here called Delicate Drama. I've just dragged that into an empty MIDI track up here. Again, I'm just going to play around and find a melody that I like. This one here, I'm going to draw it in. So what you can do is, if you find a note that you like, keep playing it, and you can look for it on the piano roll. So you can see here, I'm pressing this, which is F2. Now that's quite low. That's because that's just how this sound is made. Typically, something in F2 would be quite low, be in the bass region, but for this synth, everything's different. So this one works at this octave. So I'm just going to make sure I play that as well. So I'm just going to put in a little pattern here. Right, it's quite cheesy, but it is what it is. I'm just going to copy this. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Again, we can come in here. All these Ableton made ones have little mod wheels, so you can tweak the characteristics of the sound. So feel free to mess around with those as well. And one thing I just noticed, I'm clipping, so I'm just going to bring all these down. Alright, so that's our hip hop one. Now I'm going to move over to this dance one. So I'm going to turn all these off. Make a couple new MIDI tracks over here. And let's work on this one now. I'm just going to move this to a new line. So working down here. Alright, so we've got little housey beats. Again, I need a bass line, so I'm going to come up here, look through my basses. Because this is housey, I want to find something that suits it. Alright, so I found something called Add Square Shifter. It's quite lucky for me, it was up near the top, so I didn't have to search for too long. This kind of has that character that I want, that housey kind of vibe. So I'm just going to drag that over there, which I've already done. I'm going to make a new MIDI clip. Find something I like. And again, I'm just going to make a pattern in here. I'll make sure I'm playing it as well. Make this 2 bars long, might need to make it longer. I'll see if I can make this a little bit more interesting. So I've just swapped it out for this one called Anxious Woofer, just so I can hear a little bit better, and I've messed around with the pattern. I've got something like this. And I'm just going to mess around with the settings on this sound as well. Again, don't worry too much about what these all mean. We're going to cover those at a later stage. For now, just tweak them until you get something sounding close to what you want. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that for my bass for this housey track. I'm just going to bring those down a bit so we're not clipping. Now I'm going to add a little lead in here as well. So I'm going to find something nice, probably a synth lead again. Again, feel free to use whatever you want depending on your track. Alright, so I've had a look. I found this one called Barry Dust EP. I've just dragged that onto an empty MIDI track, and I'm just going to put a little lead in here. I want to pick something that would contrast the bass, so it's quite high. Just going to find a little melody I like. Something nice and cringy like that. That's what we love. So I'm going to put that in. I'm actually going to record this since I've got it on my keyboard. So I'll make sure I can play it right. Alright, cool. Okay, something like that. So you can see here I was a little slow to hit this one, so I'm going to drag that so it's on the beat. Doesn't matter if they're slightly off, it can add, like I said, it can add a humanness to your track, and it can actually sound better when it's not perfectly on the grid, especially for little leads like this. I mean, your kicks you definitely want on the grid, probably your bass lines as well, but for the higher stuff, your hi-hats, your snares even, those can be slightly offset just to give it that humanness feel. So I was a little early on these. I'm actually going to leave it just like that. Cool. So a nice simple little house beat that you would probably never hear in a club, but this is just to give you an example. So I hope it gives you some ideas as to how you can use Ableton sounds and change them for your own track, tweak them to how you want them to sound. And yeah, hopefully you guys can start putting basses and leads into your own tracks. So that was a quick little example with two different styles of music there. So we had the hip hop and the dance. I added the bass and the lead for both of those tracks. Again, I'll just play those two different styles. So we've got the first one, which is hip hop one. And then we got that little housey bop. So I hope that helped you guys. I hope that sparked some ideas for you, and you're able to find your own sounds and create something for your own tracks. In the next video, I'm going to quickly recap over what we went through today, and I'll also be talking about what we'll be covering next week. So yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I'll be giving you your homework as well. So hopefully that all made sense. Keep chipping away at it, and I'll see you guys in the last video for the week.